Okay, so one of my questions I had in my mind, at least I had, was on the OP-1, typically, like if I'm going to record in a, let's say I'm going to record in a snare, it's easy on the tape portion, just to lower the volume. But what if I want to play with that, the kick, which you can barely hear, with that, but the snare is too loud? How do I lower the sample? Well, I just figured that out. Stumbled up on it and didn't even think about it, but it happened. So watch this. At the top, this matters, right? Everything up here. So I think in the last video I showed you, obviously this is the whole waveform. This is something here we're doing with pitching it. This is like whether it's going to play straight through or whether it's going to be a loop. This one's just a one shot kind of straight through. And this is not the way it looks normally. So let's do this. Hold on a second. Let's go back to here. Just go here. All right, I'm going to reset it. So everything is back the way it's this is a factory kit. Okay. So if you just, let's say the snare is just too loud. Well, if you touch here, you can zoom in and adjust your point. So that way you get that zero crossing so that you don't get something. So that part's easy. So you can touch here, zoom in, right? Hit it again, go back out. Now you, which I think, in my personal opinion, I love the SP, but I wish they had, and there are some features, like if you hit resample and hit the pad, it'll go to the nearest zero crossing point. Beautiful feature. Again, SP is its own thing. I don't want to compare the two, but I love the touch, zoom in like that real fast instead of having to turn to zoom in and zoom out. So it just makes it quicker, I think, to get to that point where that put it there, close touch, and then it enhance it a little more. On the SP, you gotta use one dial. You gotta use the little dial to zoom in or out, and then move it. And sometimes it gets a little finicky, I would call it. This seems to be a little bit better. Don't go buy this just because of that. I'm just saying that's just one thing I like about it. All right. So I think I said it before, but the shift is your everything friend in the OP-1, especially in the OP-1 field. I don't know about the first one as much because I only had it for about a week. This one I've had now for almost 2 weeks. So if you hit shift, you'll notice at the top, there is a feature now that shows that you can actually, with this knob, pan it left or right or bring it back to the center, whatever you want to do. There's also the attack. So you can change the attack in here of an actual one, which I haven't done. So let's try that. Okay. So it's 0 to, let's see where it goes to. Good Lord. All right, we're not going to go all the way up. We must go to 100 or something. But anyway, so you can change the attack in here. But then you'll notice this one. See it? It's the orange. So you can lower the sample. You can see it getting smaller versus big, right? Sorry about that glare on the screen. It's the light pollution in this room. Probably need to turn the main overhead light off. That's probably why it's doing that. So anyway, you can put it back at 0 or just drop it. So this is cool. And at first you can see it's dropping the other sample in sight, but I don't think it affects that sample. It only affects the sample that you're on, I believe. So let's see. We have this one at -3. If you go to this one, hit shift, you'll see it's at 0 still. Let's go to, okay, let's go back here. This is the next sample. So let's hit the shift and you'll see it's at just -1. Because they're all at negative. Well, some of them are at negative, like this one's at -1. So it did not affect this one. It didn't, actually I might come down. Oops. You gotta make sure you hit shift. So this is even better to me. The fact that I can lower each sample, because imagine if you had to do this one by one in your, like, before you import the sample in, you had to sit there and do that and adjust it, and you get it in here and it's just too loud, it's bleeding. I don't know if that's because it's the 32-bit sampling in here, but I think that's a great feature to have, and it's so minute to some people. Some people probably look at that like, what's the big deal? Because if you're using a DAW, of course you got everything in a DAW. But this is like a, you know, on the go little DAW. And I just think the fact that you can adjust each sample is a huge point, and be able to pitch it. That's mega big. So for me, at least in here, because it makes this even more. I'm trying to get it to where, in my mind, everything in the OP-1 can be done. It's all inclusive. I don't have to go anywhere else. When they did mention adding velocity to sensitivity of these keys, which I said that in another video. So hopefully they do that sooner, not later, because that would change. That would really change the dynamics, because now you have everything, and you don't have to go get an external keyboard to try to get the velocity part. Because I actually enjoy playing on these clicky button keys, or whatever you want to call it, because they're not like some. I mean, hold on, let me see if I can turn that down so you can hear it. They're not super noisy at all, which is rare, because usually they're really noisy on stuff, but they're not noisy to me, not at all. I mean, even sitting this close, I'm sure I hear them, but they sound like as good as the noise I would say on, yeah, when I'm touching the new MacBook Pro with the Pro chip in it, right? The keyboard on it, it's not noisy either. So it reminds me of that, like that good quality. So shout out to TE for doing that. You got, I mean, you know, I'll tell you the truth too. I'll tell you when I don't like and when I do like something, but that's pretty cool. So now you know, if you didn't know, that you can change the volume of each sample. And if you look over here, you can see when it's peaking too. So like if you want to hold shift, like touch the sample, then hold shift, you want to go a little bit lower, keep it from peaking, because this one's peaking a little bit too. I'm going to take it down 1. That's good enough for me. And then if you wanted to pitch, or not pitch, but pan, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Pan a note left or right. You could do that on each one to give your drums some space in there so that everything fits. So maybe you want your kick upright, maybe you pitch this, or you maybe you pan the snare just a little to the right or something like that, you know, or maybe the hat's to a little to the left, and whatever you want to do. I'm just saying it's all there. Or percussion, you might do that, pan it, or whatever the case may be. So that's a little bit better now. So then if I go back to my recording, I need to turn the, do I have the metronome on? It's not loud enough where I can hear it. Show you how quick it is to record. I think I showed you this in the past. You leave a little room. You leave one notch open at the beginning and hit shift here. Now you have a count in, right? So then you can hit, we're on the 3rd track. Shift record 2. Want to cut it, hit the cut, hit back, hit shift back. And the one that's orange is the one that you can remove, right? It's lifting it, is removing it. Play, if you want to, this is like cutting it. This is like pasting it, or yeah, pasting it. Or you could call this cut copy if you want. So cut or copy, it's holding it in there. If you want to drop it, hit drop, right? Shift back will allow you, shift, and this will allow you to move between bars. Just remove it and then hit this, go back there and play. hand through. So if you saw it, then you can add in your. I think I showed you this before we. So let me add that in real quick. Excuse me. Hit there. We're going to go to track 4. Okay, cut, shift back, remove. Now you have your. If you don't like it, obviously you got to redo it. This isn't the same as like a MIDI type thing. You got to do it's audio. You got to re-record it. Kind of reminds me of like when you're using resample mode and the SP. In fact, I would say if you're not used to like Koala on iOS or that workflow, or then you won't be, then the SP will be harder, really hard for you because it's already challenging in its own way. But it's, to me, very similar workflow. The only difference is I think the sequencers in Koala are much easier to use, as well as really everything in Koala is much easier because it's just the hands on, everything's visible or visual. That's what I meant to say. With the SP, you got a lot more button mashing and moving around in that facet. So Koala is, of course, easier. But this guy is even more different than even the SP, but in similar fashion, you're using audio, right? So if you make a mistake, you're going to have to lift it and, you know, and either if you think you want to save that, you can lift. Then you can go over here to another space out and then drop it there and save it, right? Now it's further out. Go back and then re-record another section. And that's one thing you can do if you want to make sections. Like let's say you're doing a, what is this, an 8-bar? Yeah, 8-bar loop. You could build a couple different patterns. And just like in a DAW, if you didn't want to have another track, you would just, on that track, you would just move your one section down a little bit further, right? Like we did there, we set it over here. You can see it in blue, okay? Then you would go back and record another section in that loop. So you're kind of doing loops and stuff like that in here pretty much and building as you go. That's how it works. But that's where what's beautiful about this, having the ability to send it out to a DAW, is if you just want to record straight into the DAW, record into the DAW, or start here, maybe build an idea of where you want to go here, and then bring it to the DAW and finish it. Because maybe you like put some simple drums in here or put some a drum pattern together and you like it and you're like, oh, that's cool, but I could do better if I was on the SP, or I could do better if I was in my DAW. Okay, cool. So just lay something now and then come back, or even use Koala if you have a phone, use Koala and do the whole track, finish the track in Koala. I mean, you can start it all here and then just migrate over. And so this is like your little synthesizer, 4-track recorder, drum machine, sampler, because you got all the sample. I haven't even really touched the sample capabilities as much in here. I am going to do that at some point. I mean, I pretty much know you can go shift here and turn on the radio. Oh, that's a country station. Okay, let me see. I like country. So those come in the most clear. If you do that, it'll find the clear stations. But if you do this,
my son, I just have a struggle trying to get healthy and keep my weight laid off and I went, you know, up and down for so many years, and I ended up finding the Europe Full Body Cleanse. I did it 2 times.
I don't know what she's talking about, but does this thing have a limit to where it can go? 108. So anyway, you see that, you get the point. I like sampling off the radio, but I don't know how much on here I would do it. Maybe if I got the urge. It really is cool though to have it.
Election day is approaching. Visit vote.org today to make sure you're registered.
All right, back to the USB. See, I'm just get out of that because I don't really need that right now. So that wasn't even my point of this video. It was mostly to show you that you can adjust individual volumes of samples inside the OP-1. And sometimes you find yourself getting distracted because there's other things you can do on here. So you constantly be jumping around. That's okay too, because sometimes that's how you learn. Actually, that's how I learned a lot. And use different features like bring in instruments. Like if you have instruments to play off of, bring those in. If you don't, use iOS instruments off the iPad or off of the iPhone. I keep saying Koala, but Koala is more like my sampler. But I'm just saying you can use the AUM and all those things to help you bring in other sounds if you want something different. You can sample through the microphone if you want. So you got a lot of quality feature things right here at your hands. It's just up to you to get creative and figure out what your workflow is going to be. I'm just showing you some simple things. And yeah. And of course, there are people online too that are really good at making, if we go here, making synths. I think I said this before, I bought this guy's stuff. What did I do here? Oops. Go back to... Okay, I don't know what I did. Press something here and messed up. Let me see. Huh. Weird. I don't know exactly what I did. I had to shut my sound off. Not that. Oops. Sound there. You know what? Maybe I turned the volume too low. Okay, I don't know what in the world I did. This happens to me quite often. I'll pressing something and forget what I did. Oh, it's sampling through the mic. Hold on, let me see. I don't know what that, why am I even on this, but why did I get myself into this? Anyway, I'll figure all that out. Not a big deal. I just wanted to show you that part. So a lot more features. I'm sure they'll add more too. This is just early stages. I think this thing's only been out, what, 6 months? So if I may be mistaken on that, but I think it's like 6 months or less has been out. So it's still early stages. I remember the last one has been out for over 10 years now and it's still being used. So really a cool, incredible little device and fun to play with. So that's it for this video. I'll see you on the next one.